Coming up in today's show, we talk about role-playing in Elder Scrolls Online, we discuss when Elder Scrolls 6 will be set, and whether or not it will have multiplayer. It's all coming up in this week's Elder Scrolls Weekly. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 9 of Elder Scrolls Weekly. I'm here with a full house again. I've got Mr. Dan Wheeler.
Hello, Matt.
Wincing to my right. You look in pain. You alright?
I'm preparing myself.
Okay, mentally preparing yourself. And Mr. Andy Kelly.
Hello.
And today we've got a couple of topics we're going to talk about. We're going to look at role-playing in Elder Scrolls Online. This is because they've released a list of all the emotes. And that's sort of the tenuous link that we're using to talk about that. And then after that, someone suggested last week that perhaps we should look at the timescale of Elder Scrolls 6, the game that doesn't exist yet but definitely does. So that's what we're going on after that. And we've got an update about Olaf as well. But let's get started with the roleplay stuff. So you may have seen that on the Elder Scrolls Online website, the full list of emotes has been released. And we sort of looked at this as a sort of a way to look at role-playing in the game and whether or not it's still a big thing. We'll just start with that. Do you think, is this a game that people are going to role-play in, Andy?
Well, there's always a distinct line between the role players and the people who don't really care in MMOs. I think there's still people out there who like to RP, to use the parlance. But this, because of the way the server works on this, where there's one big mega server, all the role players who want to pretend that they really are in Tamriel are thrown in with the people who don't necessarily care about keeping in character.
I'm going to sort of hold my hand up here a little bit because I generally quite like the roleplay aspect of some games, and also when I play an Elder Scrolls game, I definitely want to pretend I'm that guy in that world. So, Dan, do you do that when you play Elder Scrolls? Can you see that being a problem in this?
I can see it working well for the single-player game, but I think that in this particular game, people that are going to try and roleplay are going to get angry quite quickly by the surroundings, because the other side of it is the people that don't roleplay, and they're just there to muck around and have fun together, and they don't care if they see a role player walk by. It's not going to affect them. If a role player sees someone walk by doing something ridiculous that's completely breaking the law, they're going to get a bit sad, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I've got experience of when I play an MMO, I like to sort of not pretend I'm really the character, but I like to kind of lose myself in it a little bit.
It's part of the fun, isn't it?
And I was playing World of Warcraft when when Cataclysm update came out, and I was doing some of the new story stuff, and I was watching this really dramatic scene, story scene happening where some main character was banishing some other character through a hell portal or something. And I was playing with my friend Owen, who used to be a writer with us and now works for Mojang, for the Minecraft people, and he's a bit of a character. And he was playing as a goblin, and in the middle of this big dramatic scene, he just started running around the NPCs and doing dance emotes and standing on the NPCs' heads and pulling out his goblin motorcycle and doing wheelies and stuff. And I remember thinking, that's the divide there between people who just want to have a bit of fun and play a game, and people who really want to get into the lore and stuff. So you're gonna get, with no distinction between RP and regular servers, you're going to get a lot of that type of thing happening.
I think so, and you're going to get a lot of you're going to get a lot of sort of Time Perceptive 69s, like we mentioned before, and Aragorns and Legolasses.
It's when Old Republic there was a million Han Solo 18, Han Solo 26. Now it's going to be
an imagination, man.
Legolas with a 4 for an A. And,
yeah,
Sauron 89 and
I personally would like to see
Gandalf 69.
I'd like to see it segregated somehow. I don't know if it's feasible, but I had this a little bit, playing the other Elder Scrolls games, and when I was in a shared house, and I took it quite seriously, and I gave my character a proper sort of fantasy name, and
I do that as well, and I always get mocked for it by the people I play with. I always give myself a lore-friendly name,
yeah, of course,
whereas they call themselves something stupid, and I'm like, no, you've got to get into it. Yeah.
A friend of mine made a wizard who he called Gerald, and in Morrowind you could enchant stuff, in all the games you can enchant stuff and give it your own name. And he made a pair of magic boots which he called the Slut Wellies.
To be fair, I did make a frost sword in Skyrim and call it Vanilla Ice.
That's pretty strong. I
So
like that.
yeah, even I'm guilty of that.
So, like, I think we've probably touched on this a little bit. Do you think like that human interaction, the fact that people are just going to be talking about, you know, what quests they're going to do next, where they're going to go, and they're going to be trying to converse in as quick a way as possible to tell people what they're doing, is that going to totally shatter this sort of overarching sense of immersion that you would hope to get in a game like this?
I think people just need to go in with it with a different set of expectations. You know, you need to approach the game understanding that this is how it's going to work because of the nature of the genre, and you can't go in thinking, you know, it's not a personal story like the Elder Scrolls games are. It's about the world.
Yeah, and the chat window's always going to be there. And what MMO players do is they, like especially like min-maxers, is they just reduce it to numbers. So in the chat window, your immersion's always been broken by people going like, "Oh, what's the hit points on this? What should I use on this boss? Let me check the wiki." Like, you know, like talking about it like it's a game, and it's like, no, I want them to be saying like, "Forsooth, I've seen a great beast by the cavern of tears. Come, friends, let's slay the beast." But you know, that's not going to happen, is
you
it?
You get level 60 Ali at XR.
Yeah. All this impenetrable numbers and you know, like lingo. It's like, no, you should be speaking like you're really here.
I think this is a good sort of point to shout out to people listening and let us know whether or not you're intending to role play in this game, and we promise like that we know no judgment, because I think I count myself amongst the role players. Don't let the other people discourage you if they're going to laugh at you. But like, I really would like to know if you play as a role player in like the normal Elder Scrolls games, and if you're intending to do so in this, and whether or not it actually makes any difference. Because I think increasingly perhaps like RPG as a term, especially in a game like Skyrim, is a little bit misleading. Like,
yeah, well, the RPG title has lost a bit of meaning. You know, like when what's an example? Like, you know, indie music no longer means independent music. It means
music with guitars.
Yeah, alternative guitar music. So I think RPG now means anything with even the slightest bit of stats, because Skyrim isn't a deep RPG by any means. I mean, you compare it to like the old CRPGs like Baldur's Gate and you know, stuff like that, Icewind Dale. Those were like proper RPGs because they had lots of stats and they had random rolls.
Yeah, rolling to hit.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And you know, Skyrim is like, it's kind of just like an action game really, with a little undercurrent of, and you know, it's actually really hard to roleplay in Elder Scrolls games, because as much as I love them, there's always that problem where no one understands what you've done. So like I was the you know, the Archmage in Winterhold, you know, the head of the thing, the most powerful magic user. I defeated all these beasts, and there's still an NPC wandering around going, "You look like a magician. You should try and join the College of Winterhold." It's like, I'm the Archmage.
It's my college.
And no one ever recognises what you've done. Like, people still treat you like, you know. I'd like to see in another Elder Scrolls a bit more reactive, where people will be like, will recognise what you've done without just the usual like, "It's the hero of Kvatch." Like, I'd like to hear some, you know. And so it's really hard to roleplay in Elder Scrolls games, I think.
It's so easy to have it shattered, isn't it?
Yeah, the illusion's always shattered by that sort of thing. So, I don't know, like, Elder Scrolls Online, it seems like there might be more role-playing elements in terms of mechanics, but I still think it's a light role-playing game. It's an RPG light, I think.
With that in mind, have either of you had a chance to have a look at any of the emotes? I've got them here.
I've had a quick look over them, yeah.
There's some incredibly strange stuff on here. And,
well, they've got the obvious staple. They've got /dance. I mean,
that's the first thing you do, isn't it?
Where would the waiting area outside a dungeon, how could that exist without /dance?
I think I can sort of see people exercising, because you've got sit-ups and push-ups. or like they've even included one for a single push-up. I hope that's what that is.
What else have they got?
Curtsy, which I like, again, it's fairly standard one, but I quite like the idea of, like, you know, gender specific. Yeah. So I can make my orc.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see like my giant Nord warrior curtsy a monster before he slays it.
Can you explain the difference between these two for me, please? There's point and point back.
Well, maybe point is behind, point like over there behind you.
Yeah.
I'm gesticulating as if anyone at home can see.
But when I looked at it, I thought that would be like a retort to someone pointing at you.
Yeah,
point back.
Yeah,
the same. Yeah.
I particularly like kowtow. I don't know, like how you can sort of do that and
sort of just shrink back.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the same as cower. And shush as well. I think shush is going to be brilliantly useful, because there's nothing better than just a
/ drunk.
Yeah, hammer wall, like maybe that goes with drunk, like sort of banging on walls.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope that's what it is.
Seems quite. There's a lot of depth there. I mean, there's variations of emotes. That's there's not merely pointing. There's also pointing backwards. So that it's a very rich array of emotes.
Yeah,
not that anyone's ever really going to when I play them, I usually just use like cheer. Because every time you beat a boss or something, you just spam cheer, or dance when I'm bored waiting on someone. But I don't think I'm going to be doing setups much, or arms crossed, or beckon,
or twiddle.
Actually, beckon would be quite fun because you could strip all your clothes off and just follow people around beckoning them. if you were a griefer, you know. Not that I would ever do that.
We're going to make role players
the most hideous character imaginable and just beckon them with a naked orc. This is how far I went once on World of Warcraft. I had a dwarf hunter, and one of their abilities is to play dead, which is quite a useful PvP ability where you can pretend to be dead, so people can no longer attack you. And I set up a macro, so whenever he did play dead, he would shout, "By Ogmunder's beard, I am slain." Completely invalidated the point of doing it because it was obvious that you were doing like a macro. No.
There's a famous story that has been on the internet for a while. It might be made up. I think it originated from 4chan, so I take it with a salt mine. But there's a story about someone and seeing some role players in World of Warcraft, like a couple, and one of them was like, making anguished pains, and the other one was like, "Come on, breathe," and it was like a pregnancy. Right. And then when she finally gave birth, a level 1 character spawned.
Incredible.
And went mama.
That is amazing. I really hope that's true.
I mean, that sounds like one of those internet fables, but I have seen some. I remember in World of Warcraft and Orgrimmar, because obviously Horde is best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I've said that wrong as well. Orgrimmar.
No, I think that's
right. But I remember seeing people walking. Like, there's...
I used to walk all the time.
Yeah, there's like the default running in World of Warcraft, but you can hold a key or you can macro it to walk. And I remember just seeing like a line of people, really high level players, just walking really slowly, and I was just following them for a while, and they were talking to each other in sort of slightly full medieval talk. So I was like, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, walking on your mount was the coolest thing, especially if you had a wolf, because you sort of rock from side to side. It looked incredible. I once got offered a gold piece to pretend to give someone a blowjob in World of Warcraft.
Wow!
Did you take it?
Well, I was quite a low level character, and back then...
Oh yeah, 1 gold.
Could have got me a lot of stuff. And,
I'd do that.
It crossed my mind, and then they logged out, but I felt dirty for a while afterwards. And on
that's the wonderful world of role playing.
To be honest, some of this suggests that you might have an element of that. I think they've done quite a good job of providing us with a wide array of emotes, but obviously it's not wide enough because they've sort of pushed out to the community for them to suggest their own ones. But you guys have come up with some brilliant suggestions, right? Right.
Well, I'd like to see some of the emotes from Saints Row brought in, like the Carlton dance.
Yeah, that'd be that would really ruin it.
Some of the ruder ones, like simulating various sex acts. Lore and mythology be damned.
Well, maybe they could sort of weave it together with a bit sort of like the 9 divines, because one of them's Dibella's the goddess of erotic instruction, isn't she? So maybe what says erotic instruction more than a wanking emote?
That's just what I want. I just want like a classic British guy in a pub wanker sign. That's what
amazing. I want. Okay, that's a really good choice. Have you thought of anything, Dan?
I have actually, yeah. So I'm thinking. So in Skyrim, you go to Whiterun, and there's all the vegetable stalls and people. That'd be quite good, wouldn't it? If there was a command that was / set up shop.
Just
a pop-up vegetable shop just appeared in front of you.
Yeah.
That you couldn't interact with it or anything.
It
was just to ruin the lore of everyone else around you.
Wherever you were.
Shop appeared.
Like the most sort of bleak place, like the middle of Red Mountain.
Yeah, and there'd be like an animation of you preparing a sandwich or giving it out or something.
I love that.
Yeah, like complex emotes with props would be good. I know everyone's never done that, where the emote the character brings out an item or an object. That'd be quite good. That's a good idea.
There was a mod for
like a loot or something, like / loot.
I'm astonished.
But if you did that, you'd get like 100 people all trying in their loots.
They
at
did
once.
that in Lord of the Rings Online, so you could there was. instruments you could play, and they were all tapped to the keypad as well. So,
right.
so people would try and play stuff together, and it was
That's
obviously
brilliant.
like just a sort of a school play cacophony of horror.
Yeah.
Like, but the idea of it, like a load of dwarves playing a lute, was incredible.
You could also like take out like a Gandalf style pipe
Oh yeah,
and have a puff on that while you're waiting.
you've missed out, and that's Lord of the Rings Online as well. You had a
Oh,
smoke
really?
button, yeah, and you could just sit there. I played a dwarf, and I just did that all the time, just
They're way ahead of
smoking
the
and thinking.
curve, yeah.
Missed out. It's a really overlooked MMO. That I've got nothing of worth. I've got Stamp on Sweet Roll, which is like the start
Is that
of
to show anger?
yeah, like you can throw it on the ground and like angrily shout, and dragons only joking because there are no dragons. You could be like pointing to the sky and then
You
really.
could point and go dragon, and everyone would look up and there's nothing
No,
there.
no dragons. Or maybe I thought like race specific ones. So like the Khajiit could do sort of catty kind of scratches or pounce on balls and things. And the
Argonians could lick their own eyes.
Yeah, that would be. Maybe they should just do that anyway. That should just be their sort of passive kind of animation. And casual racism for the Dark Elves, obviously.
Yeah.
One thing that isn't on here is jokes, actually, and that's I think it's /silly in World of Warcraft is quite good for.
Yeah.
But again, it's like an RP destroying kind of. But it's quite well done. So maybe like orcs singing songs and telling jokes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've probably pretty much covered that to completion, which brings us on to Olaf, and unfortunately Olaf's taking a break this week. Is that right, Andy?
There's no Olaf this week. It's been an incredibly busy and eventful week for various reasons. So yeah, Olaf is having a rest back with his missus in that house.
Back with
but he shall return with another 3 things off the old cabbage list.
Excellent, that's cool. So. We'll move on now to Elder Scrolls 6 again. And last week we obviously talked about locations, which was enormous fun. But someone in the comments suggested that perhaps we should look at time frames as well, because there's a huge amount of history here, and we don't really know anything about like the sort of the timeline ends really with the end of the 4th era.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the end of Skyrim. So.
Well, we need another big event, basically.
We do, yeah.
Because the hero needs something to. I mean, what did we have in Oblivion? It was Oblivion Gates. In Skyrim, it was Alduin. What was it in Morrowind? What was the thing? Wasn't it the heart thing?
Heart of Lorcan, yeah. The sort of it kind of had been like an ongoing problem. Actually, it was the Blight, because they're sort of like essentially like there was the Blight and there was the Corpus, which is like sort of a monstrous type of leprosy, and it was sort of spreading and expanding. So there was kind of something growing gently. But
and Elder Scrolls Online is more like Bao and his anchors, his dark anchors or whatever.
Yeah, it just sounds rude every time.
So we need, I mean, like that's the thing about fantasy. You can come up with any great, blight or something, any great cataclysmic event. But what I'd like to see, right, is that's been done, and it's a fantasy cliche, is that the hero will save the world from the big cataclysmic MacGuffin.
Yeah.
In a post Game of Thrones world, I want to see an Elder Scrolls that focuses on not about the grand magic stuff, but like political.
You've said exactly the same thing as me, man. Yeah,
and mashing it, and the political backstabbing and but that. If you think that sounds boring, watch Game of Thrones. It isn't.
Absolutely,
it's brilliant.
yeah.
So I'd like to see it more, and that's a tall order for Bethesda, who, let's be honest, are not the best at making human-looking characters or acting characters. But I'd like to see it more about, because they sort of touched on it with the Stormcloaks and the Imperials. But I'd like to see something that's really about, and you could maybe be involved in this vying for the throne of somewhere. So I'd like to see that. Like, take it down a level. You could always stick some magical stuff in there, like the usual Daedric princes and stuff. But maybe it goes against what Elder Scrolls is, this grand fantasy thing.
I've literally written "get big by going smaller." Yeah, that's why. I think you can't really follow like world swallowing dragons. Like so.
Yeah, because if they want to like really work on how quests can alter depending on stuff you do, this is the best way of doing it, where you can affect the politics of regions, and if maybe there's some dynamic politics thing and you can ultimately become emperor or something like that. But I'd like to see that.
I think that's the gameplay danger of where they're going, is that so they had obviously Oblivion Gates and Oblivion, and then dragons in Skyrim, much like the peak or the pinnacle of fantasy.
Yeah,
these huge beasts to fight, and
what could they do next?
Yeah,
like?
Sort of keeping them in for another game.
Armored dragons.
Yeah. Well, the dragons were big and impressive, but maybe they could do like. Maybe big titans or something stomping around the earth, in like Shadow of the Colossus style, You have to climb up them and stuff. But I don't know. They'd have to go bigger. Either they go bigger to the giants, the size of skyscrapers, or they do some evil man with a goatee beard. Like the evil necromancer.
Yeah.
Who's raising the dead. No. We've done all that. Let's get to the really interesting, like the dirty, gritty, fantasy politics stuff.
I think it's entirely possible. We've got a tweet from Paul Watkins at Double Hearth who called it now. He said Elder Scrolls Alinor, and Alinor is the name, the newly named Somerset Isles, and sort of the edge of Valenwood. So it's this sort of the alliance between the High Elves and the Bosmer. And if you look in sort of the recent history, like you've got the Thalmor stuff, and you've got all this conflict, and Hammerfell leaves the Empire and stuff. And I was thinking exactly the same as you, Andy, like full on kind of like Empire teetering on the brink of destruction.
Yeah.
So like your actions would actually affect the future of the whole thing. So like instead of having you killing dragons, you could affect the entire sort of fate of a continent by stabbing one guy in the back. So and even to the point where, like, if you did go to the Somerset Isles, I'd like the idea of some cities being more dangerous than the wild. Like, you go in there and you have to sort of keep your head down in a way that you never have to in an Elder Scrolls game. Because, like, I would in Skyrim, I sort of proudly trot into the sort of the Stormcloak capital in my full Imperial armour. Like,
that's what we were saying earlier about how it's hard to roleplay. Like, you're sneaking into the Thalmor embassy wearing full head-to-toe Daedric armour and stuff. Is that
a night over? Oh no, it's just my imagination.
Oh, that is that mission at the end of Skyrim where you've got to, at the end of the Dark Brotherhood, where you've got to assassinate a certain character to impose as his chef. And all you have to do is put the chef's hat on, and it doesn't matter if you're like draped in like bloody fur armour or like dragon scale armour. It's like, oh, he's wearing the chef's hat, so he must be the chef. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. And to be honest, I think you're right. It's probably the most ambitious thing they could do. Like, you don't want it becoming like Call of Duty, where this sort of they have to feel the need to escalate it every time to the point that
because bigger is
shit
boring. I think I know people really like the God of War series, but to me it just seems like that series just does things. It goes right, it's bigger. You're fighting on a guy's thumb. Like, no, it just gets like bigger and bigger and bigger, and the bigger it gets, the more you lose a sense of what it is. Like, you need a tether to something like real and normal. Just making things bigger doesn't work. So I think this Elder Scrolls has to mature and do something a little bit more, low key. But it still has to have like monsters and dungeons in it. But that can be like
Game of Thrones does, doesn't it? It melds those two things incredibly well. And I still feel like with that kind of fantasy that it just proves, as in real life, that people are much bigger bastards than dragons, and that's far more exciting prospect. Like, you can feel far more sort of emotional about stopping someone that's horrible than you can about a monster.
Because when humans are fighting amongst each other, you know what humans are like. You've got a point of reference. But when you're fighting like a big Alduin, a dragon that's been dead for centuries or whatever, you don't it's like it doesn't. You can't emotionally resonate with it.
It's too easy, isn't it? Yeah, it's just too easy. All you've got to do is kill it. You don't have to make a choice.
Yeah. So I don't think they'll do that though. I think they're just going to go bigger. They're going to go, here's an even bigger threat. Or
two dragons at but they've already done that. But so we think they're probably going to go forward. Like, can you see any sort of need? What would it be if they went backwards? Could you see them ever envisioning like a prequel or something? Because for me, that I wrote it down and then I thought, no.
When the Dwemer were still kicking about.
Surely not.
I don't think I ever want to see that.
Yeah, I remember we said in the other episode it's better that if they're left a mystery, but there is a lot of potential there for big steampunk cities and stuff like that.
Am I right in thinking that every consecutive game in the main series has been progressive in a timeline sense? So like 100, 200 years each time. But you say that Skyrim is the end of the fourth era.
Yeah.
And there's no lore after that.
No, but I don't know how much of Skyrim's lore was written after release.
A lot of it was, but some of it was, based on existing lore. But
I think it made perfect sense for them to go forward another 200 years and write some new lore for it.
Yeah, because then they wouldn't be limited; they could do whatever they want.
Yeah, and you already know the ending if you go prequel as well, which is crap. Can you sort of see any significant overhauls? Like, obviously, we've floated the idea of massive gameplay overhauls, but can you think of them doing sort of adding more playable races, or maybe throwing back to a time when you had like loads and loads of weapons rather than swords and axes.
I think they're not going to go complex again. It's a real shame because in Oblivion you could do your own custom classes and there was a lot more control. Then it got simpler because it is like it's designed to be sat and played on a couch. It's not a super dense RPG, but I don't think they're gonna. As much as I'd like them to go more complex again, I don't think they will. It's just they're gonna keep it streamlined and playable on the sofa because it is that kind of series. I suppose it's the accessible RPG, but I think they're just gonna get more streamlined. I think because I thought the menu and the menu system, this kind of Apple-inspired menus in Skyrim weren't great, and they were modded almost instantly and made a million times better by. There's that there's a really popular
Sky
interface
UI,
mod.
is it?
Yeah, Sky UI, which is way better than the So I think they learn lessons because every Elder Scrolls game gets functionally a lot better. But I do miss stuff like stats raising as you do certain things, like I miss jumping up and down and raising my agility and stuff. As little sense as it made, I just don't like losing control of my character.
No, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So maybe they will go the other way. I don't know. It's so hard to tell the direction they're going to take it in.
I think simplicity definitely is likely.
Yeah.
Remember, your athletic skill would raise quicker if you swam rather than if you ran. Just a lovely touch. What do you think, Dan?
Something I'd like to see in the next Elder Scrolls is maybe like some sort of relationship system, and I don't mean by having a wife. I mean more in the Fable sense, where you can develop friendships with citizens and towns. So at the moment, if you do a quest for someone, they give you some money, and the next time you see them, they'll talk to you as if you've never met them before.
Yeah.
So I don't know how they would do it. It'd obviously be an absolute nightmare.
They've done it in the past with a very binary system in Morrowind, where you just had a slight, you sort of had a scale from 1 to 100, and you could try and charm people or bribe them to get it up. And
it's like Fable,
yeah.
And in Skyrim, they did have a little bit of response to if you helped someone, they'd have a line of dialogue where they'd go, well, if you walk past them, they'd go, you've been a good friend to me. That means something. But all it did was just change the line, it wouldn't. But yeah, the idea of relationship making more sense, because even the marriage system is so weird. Like, you just get the amulet, you chop wood for a woman, and suddenly she wants to marry you.
Yeah. Just like
and she provides you with one hot meal a day.
But that's not Bethesda's strong point. Human beings, how they speak and interact and look, is not their strong point.
No,
because the stunted conversations, and it's got a little bit better, but it's still the mud crabs, terrible creatures,
and the crash zooms on the faces.
And they've been getting better, but there's still a sort of. It feels like the world is so beautiful that it jars with the slightly robotic, like animatronic characters,
like the weird-looking children in Skyrim.
Yeah. They're all identical as well. Yeah, that's not
American
their strong point.
children.
They might be developing new tech for. I think they probably realise this internally. I think they might be developing new tech and maybe hiring some better actors, because that's they're great at world building and lore and missions, quite a quest design, but they don't know what humans are like. So they need to. I think I'd hope they're internally trying to make better face tech, so you can have characters you can empathise with.
I really hope so, because I think that's where the peril comes from. And if they were to go down the kind of road of it being, sort of tense political espionage, you need to have people that you fear losing, and you just don't fear that at all.
I think maybe as well with the next gen, there might be the opportunity to incorporate some motion cap, which has been missing from the series, and all the other games around it are becoming better and better animation wise.
It's like the transitions between animations are really weird in Skyrim, where like a villager will robotically walk over to a wood stump, and then there'll be like a pause, and then he'll appear suddenly in a wood chopping stance. It's been getting better, but the seamlessness, it all feels a bit like you can just see the AI going, right, approach object, initiate animation for object. It all feels a bit, it's so weird when you look at these beautiful vistas and the mountains and the fog and the weather, and then you look down at all this animated shop mannequins wandering around. It's like it's even more jarring. So I would hope they're trying to. I think that's fix that.
One thing at Skyrim that really bugged me. It's not really even a big deal, but chopping wood, and you could chop wood for hours, as Olaf does, and the wood pile of wood just wouldn't get any bigger. The wood would like flip out of where you chopped it from and fall into a pit and just disappear.
An endless pile of wood. They need to. Immersion would be improved by having it, making the world feel a bit more, less robotic, like that.
I think we're at the point now, really, and I think we'll probably see this in a few weeks' time when GTA comes out. That you do expect more. The world can feel a little bit more organic.
Yeah,
and it's perhaps necessary now to try and aim for that. I think last question then, which I hope we already all know the answer to. Do you think they'll go multiplayer or not?
I hope not.
Interestingly, I was getting my hair cut the other day, and my hair guy is a gamer, and he loves Elder Scrolls. And he came up, he mentioned to me, he went, "Wouldn't it be great if you could co-op Skyrim?" And I thought that would actually be brilliant if you could, not like competitive multiplayer, that would be terrible. But if they made it so that someone could just jump in and you could go questing with them, I think it wouldn't mess it up too much. I think it'd be really good, and maybe they could incorporate some 2-player puzzles and dungeons, and imagine how fun it would be for 4 of you even to just take down a dragon, with one of them casting spells and one of them shooting arrows, and when you ground it, 2 guys are running in with their axes, and
it would be fun.
So I think they might put co-op in. I think it would work really well. I don't think but Elder Scrolls is in one way about that lone adventurer thing, but maybe you'd be the main character, but whenever someone joined your game, they were just like mercenaries, like random characters. They weren't part of the story.
Yeah, I think that's what Fable did as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what Fable did. So I think I'm really against multiplayer being shoved into the games that don't need it, but I think co-op for 2 or 4 players in an Elder Scrolls game would really work well.
Little pockets of fellowship, that would be
still
your story.
Yeah, it'd be like, imagine that, all of you run climbing up the mountain like the fellowship,
yeah.
And like maybe one of you could be a wizard. You could be at the front guiding the others. It'd be amazing. It'd be like Lord of the Rings.
And the other one could be at the back doing slash dance.
Yeah. So that's not what Elder Scrolls Online would be bigger than that, but I'd like to have a more personal little multiplayer experience.
You sold it to me there, I think, a little bit. The idea of it filled me with dread. But as long as it isn't sort of as long as no one off the team's taken out to do a 5-on-5 battle arena with arrows.
But see, having recently played Chivalry, Medieval Warfare on PC, that works really well.
Yeah.
With the clash of medieval weapons and stuff. So if they were forced to put in a competitive multiplayer, it would feel so weird. But if it was even a little bit like Chivalry, I'd be alright with that. Chivalry with the Elder Scrolls lore could be good.
You've damned us all, man.
I know this. And just to be clear again, like I'm not a fan of multiplayer, and I never play multiplayer unless it's like really good. Like the games like Tomb Raider having it and Mass Effect 3 having it just felt really pointless to me. But I think in this instance, I think it might work. Mainly the co-op.
Yeah, I think perhaps you're right about that.
You could say on the headset, "You have my axe."
Yeah, you'd have to talk in character.
And my and my Wabberjock. And my plus
my
one.
Marunes dagger.
And my enchanted frost dagger.
Yeah. Brilliant. There you go. I think that's that's sold it to everyone, right? Yeah. Rush out and get that.
I might just be mad. I'd be interested to see if anyone thinks I'm gone mad.
Yeah.
That's actually a good idea.
As ever, please do let us know. Look at both sides of the coin and let us know what you think.
Both sides of the septum.
Sorry, that was a missed opportunity for a joke there. And likewise with the setting as well. Do you think they should go bigger, or would you like to see it ramped back a little bit, see them try and improve the kind of the espionage elements of it and the people and stuff like that, and if they should go full Game of Thrones but without dragons?
I think you mean like world size.
Actually, to be honest, I was thinking what Dan said last week about sailing between, like if you were sailing between Somerset Isles and Hammerfell and Valen Woods.
I think they had a good balance in Skyrim where it felt big but it didn't feel empty. Like a lot of Cyrodiil was just empty, procedurally generated empty forests. In Skyrim there was always like a little thing to find. There was a little shrine or a little chest or a little pillar puzzle or something.
It's a great world.
Yeah, there was stuff. You always stumbled on something, even if it wasn't marked on the map. Even just like the Lady of the Lake's hand poking out of the water. Or just there was always something to see. So I think they got a good balance. It could feel a little bit grander though, like, you know, it doesn't take that long to climb up the throat of the world, really.
Yeah, you'd love it to take like a proper kind of
you know,
hour-long
because the
trek.
lore builds it up as like the 7,000 steps.
It's a hill.
Yeah, and you can really just stroll up it, and like there's always a frost troll and you're there. I'd like it to feel a bit more like the world is like, you know, like the feeling of you know, at the end of The Hobbit. Have you seen The Hobbit? Where they go, you know, they've been journeying for 2.5 hours, and then the lonely mountain's still miles away.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like it to feel like if you were going somewhere, you were on a big quest
Yeah.
that involved like going through Moria style big underground cities, and I'd want it to feel like you're on a journey a little bit more.
Perhaps we can hope for that from Elder Scrolls Online a little bit, because that's a world that's going to be enormous. But I totally agree. I think that sense of scale, if it adds to the feeling of you being so far from home, is definitely where the adventure comes from.
Because that'd be a good basis for as Tolkien proved years ago, that's a great basis for a story. Someone an experienced, been taken out of their idyllic home to go to all these mad places. I mean, that's a human story that makes sense more so than you're just a random guy who's going to fight a load of dragons, you know.
It's true. It's very true. Frodo is nothing without Sam, so there's your co-op angle again.
Oh yeah, because if one of you's like struggling, you know, you can shout down the headset, "Come on!
I'll carry you, Mr. Frodo." Brilliant. I think.
Oh dear.
Dan's just gone. He's walked out. Do not hand these madmen the keys to Elder Scrolls 6. I thought you were quite pro Tolkien, Dan.
I am pro Tolkien, yeah. I'm not sure about the Frodo Sam analogy that you need to Skyrim. We'll wait and see.
Brilliant. I think we should probably leave it there, because before we say anything else we shouldn't. So that's great. Thanks very much for joining us this week. Let us know what your thoughts are, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
Bye.